Today, I want to talk about courageous conversations. First, I want to say a thank you to Luke, who inspired a courageous conversation that I had yesterday. So, I have a friend, and a long time ago, he lost a lot of money. And I knew that he lost this money. We'd had some conversations about it, but I'd never dug into the depths of, like what happened? How did this come about? And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars here. So, we're talking about, a significant sum of money. Anyway, yesterday, Luke said, hey, send him a text, find out how he lost that money. And I realized that the reason I'd never had this conversation with my friend was because we hadn't been together, like physically in person, for a very long time. And so essentially I'd been, holding that question back and going, when I see him, I will ask that question. And of course, I haven't seen him. He doesn't live in Auckland anymore. He does come here occasionally. I don't really go to where he's living now. And so I don't see him. And so it becomes a convenient excuse, a convenient reason not to have that courageous conversation. Anyway, so inspired by Luke yesterday, I picked up the phone, I rang him up, and I found out how he lost the money, what happened to it. And it wasn't the way that I had thought it had happened, which was why I wanted to ask him about it, because I was curious. And this is the benefit of a challenging conversation or a courageous conversation, or whatever you want to call it. You can get insights that you wouldn't get without it. Now, often, if you're a leader, if you're in a position of power, someone that leads a team, courageous conversations, that'll be something that you're trained on. That'll be something that people will talk to you about. But if you're not in a leadership role, if you're not a manager, if you're not a mentor, if you're not a team leader, then a courageous conversation is probably not something that you hear about or think about, but you should. Because it's these conversations that actually move the dial, actually shift the needle. That's what moves our lives forward. In this case, it gave me an opportunity to find out, okay, cool, this is what happened to this money. This is how he lost it. It's not the way that I thought he lost it. And so it's okay, good. I learned something. Also, the great thing about courageous conversations is it deepens that relationship that you have with that person. Because, of course, you're getting into something that's a bit more detailed, something that's a bit more personal. Now, full disclosure, full warning here, sometimes when you try and have a courageous conversation with someone, they won't want to do it. They will run away. They will avoid you, or they will say, no, I don't want to talk about that. And don't worry, I've been there. I've had that happen to me. And the reality is that some people won't want to have those courageous conversations with you, and that's okay. Of course, if you're in a leadership role, if that's a member of your team, that may not be acceptable. They may have to have the conversation with you. But if it's in your everyday life, it's just a friend or a colleague or a family member, sometimes you just have to let that go. You just have to accept, hey, we're not going to see this the same way. We're not going to look at it the same way. Anyway, that's today's tip. Go out there, have a courageous conversation, have a challenging conversation. And actually, one last thing about these conversations. Often, they are nowhere near as bad as we imagine. In our mind, we build them up to be this big, oh my God thing. And then when we actually get to them, they're fine. The conversation that I had over the phone, because obviously I couldn't see him in person, was fine. It was a really nice conversation. It was a really good conversation. He didn't seem to be uncomfortable about talking about it. I certainly wasn't uncomfortable asking him about it. It went very smoothly. Of course, it doesn't always go smoothly, but more often than not, for me anyway, personally, I find that those conversations are much easier when you have them than you expect them to be. Because often it's like the elephant in the room. Like we all know that it's there, just nobody is talking about it. So go out there today, have an amazing day. If there's an opportunity to have a courageous or a challenging or a curious conversation, please do. And let me know in the comments how you get on. Hey, have a great day.